Hello, I've been working on this video about statements of case for what seems like about a year or something. When I say working on it, I keep starting and then getting distracted or getting unhappy about the quality of the recording, etc., etc., and so I never get it done. So today I've decided I'm going to put it out whatever happens and however bad it is. So what follows is the final video that I've done, and I apologise for any technical problems with it and content problems with it, but if I don't get this out, I'll probably never do it. And I hope that this is the first of a number of similar videos I'm going to make about training issues for housing and social welfare lawyers. And that once I've done this one, it'll get easier. So please bear with me and hope you enjoy this one. This is a video about statements of case, why they're so important and how to prepare them. So what is a statement of case? Well, you can see the first page of one over here. I'll look at it in more detail later on. Put as simply as possible, a statement of case is a document which sets out the facts of a client's case. This is deceptively simple. You may think it can't be too difficult to make a note of what the client wants help with. However, the client will often be confused about the problem they're facing, and not being legally trained, they're unlikely to identify what the legal issues are, and therefore what the important facts are. The caseworker needs to distill the information provided by the client to produce a statement in the client's own words, making sense of and explaining the problem faced. The client can be asked to approve and/or correct the contents once it's been prepared. The preparation of a statement of case is the process by which the caseworker sets out their own understanding of what the case is about. They can then use it to remind themselves about the case later on and to inform others about it, such as the legal aid agency, barristers, expert witnesses, and ultimately the court, as to what the case is about. So why is a statement of case so important? Well, for a lawyer starting work on a client's case, the first steps that they take are concerned with untangling the threads of the case as presented by the client, and then establishing what the legal issues are that need to be engaged with. It's only once these steps have been taken that a worthwhile plan of action can be drawn up. Untangling the threads involves understanding the events giving rise to the client seeking assistance and who the client and the other persons involved in the case are. This information provides the foundations for the case on which more complex considerations, such as the basis of a legal defence to a possession claim or a judicial review, can be built. Preparing a statement of case should therefore be one of the very first steps taken in a case after obtaining all relevant documents from the clients and interviewing them. What should be in a statement of case? Well, statements of case will vary according to what the actual case is about, but they should all include the same basic information about the client and the other parties before addressing the details of the case. So the common features will be information about the clients, including their full name, address, age, details of any medical conditions and any special needs. It's also important to establish what the impact of those medical conditions and special needs are on the client's ability to carry out daily activities. The names, ages, and medical conditions of anyone else living with the client or who might be expected to live with them should also be recorded in the statement. The client's immigration status and language skills should also be recorded. If English is not their first language, and whether they require assistance of an interpreter on what their first language is. The income, capital, and general status should be recorded. So should the question of whether they're receiving benefits such as universal credit. If a client's working, the statement should contain details of their job, who they work for, how long they've had the job, how much they earn each week or month, and where they work. The statement should include the name and address, including the email and other contact details of the landlord and any other persons involved in the case, such as the local authority, including the departments and caseworkers' details. The names and contact details of doctors and other persons dealing with medical issues should be recorded, as should the contact details of any witnesses and what it is they can be witnesses to. Importantly, you should record the details of any solicitors or other legal agencies who've worked on the case and why they are no longer working with the client. After getting information about the client, the statement should also give details about the opponent and other people involved in the case. Then it should set out details of what the client understands the legal problem to be. For instance, if they're facing a claim for possession or have a problem with disrepair, the details to be set out will vary depending on the client's presenting problems. Now, here again, the client may think they've got a particular problem, but they've actually got a slightly different problem. So a client who thinks their problem is just eviction from temporary accommodation provided by council may actually have a more detailed problem concerning the reasons why the council wants to evict them in the first place, which will turn on perhaps a homelessness application. So yes, once you've got details of the issues giving rise to the case, you then need to move on to a very important question, which is often overlooked, but which shouldn't be, which is what the client thinks would be a suitable or appropriate outcome for the case. So you can ask them when preparing this, what is it that you'd need to see in the future that would make you think you were pleased you came to see us and we achieved how we'd achieved what you wanted. Now, this is important because what you may initially think the client's problem is may not be the actual problem as they understand it and what needs solving. So, for instance, somebody with a disrepair problem may need disrepair work carrying out, but if they're at risk of violence at the property, or if they've got a landlord who wants the property back because they're going to sell it, it's probably best to try and get them housed as well by the local authority as a homeless person. And you might overlook that if you just focus on the disrepair. And then once you've got a surveyor's report, the client then says, "Well, the landlord wants the property back." Um, the last bit I'd say, which perhaps comes before the outcome bits, is just what the next deadlines are, if there's anything in there, such as a court hearing date or a deadline for requesting a review of a decision. A lot of the answers to these questions will come from the client directly at interview, but you can start drafting the statement and answering the questions by looking at their documents which they provide, which you should read before interviewing the client. So you can sketch out the outline of the statement in as much as the facts can be established from the documents before you speak to them. So let's have a closer look at the statement of case which I've prepared here. Now, this is a short sample based on a fictional client, and looking at it, I can see that there's lots of details which I should have recorded, such as the name of the landlord in paragraph 1 and their details, and also the full details of the letting agency. So there's probably other mistakes and things you can spot if you look at the statement in detail, but it's really provided here just to give you an idea of what the statement looks like and what the basic information is. So what you can see here is that the client's main problem is that she's got a landlord who's applied for a possession order and has issued a bailiff's warrant. It looks as if an eviction date hasn't been set yet. She's applied to the council for assistance as a homeless person, but has been told to wait until the bailiffs come and actually evict her before expecting the council to help her. This is actually a very common problem and is quite unlawful for councils to do this. The client's son has special needs and a social worker has been involved, although he appears to have closed his file without good reason and without having provided any assistance. I won't go further into the legal issues at this point, as this is just an example. Looking at it now, as I say, I can see there's lots that needs to be added, but let's just look at the content. So what you'll see at the beginning is that the statement starts off with the name of the client and the date when the statement was prepared, and it goes on to give her address and then the details of the children who live with her and the medical details of the family. After that, the statement records the rent details and the fact that there are no rent arrears on and that the property is not in a state of disrepair. It's often good to establish these as a negative because then you can be satisfied that the reason that rent arrears or disrepair are not mentioned is just that somebody forgot to ask about it. The statement then goes on to state why the landlord wants to evict the client and the reasons why she considers the property to be unsuitable for her due to her son's medical condition in any event. The statement Carries on by describing the client's dealings with the cat and the advice received from the Housing Department and Children's Services Department before concluding with what she considers a suitable outcome to be. So that's a very basic statement of case, which you could build on as a sort of basic template, but it gives you an idea of where you should be starting with. The best way to prepare a statement of case like this, as I said, is to go through all the documents that the client's prepared first, or the client's brought to you first. And if they haven't given you documents, you should definitely ask for all the documents they've got, because without them, you're not going to make a lot of sense of the case. For instance, talking about a possession claim without looking at the court papers is a fairly empty exercise. So what you then need to do is, when going through the documents and then interviewing the client, you need to go through a checklist of all of the issues, all the questions that you should be asking in order to get all of the information which you need. Now, checklists are important I think, for all aspects of legal work, so that you can make sure that you've done everything at each stage that you need to do. But it's particularly useful in the case of preparing a statement of case, because even the most experienced lawyers, if you're in a hurry and you're talking to somebody, you may forget to ask something, which you then kick yourself later on. For instance, you could ask somebody if they've got children and go all through the case and then forget to ask if they or the children have any significant medical problems, which you will have to go back and ask again if you're not if you're going to do your job properly. And so you want to get all of that information asked straight away. So if you just go through that checklist sort of methodically and like a robot, then you won't miss anything. And however stressed and busy you are, you'll find that that's the best approach to take. So what I've done for this video is I've uploaded a checklist which you can use for getting basic information from a client, and also copies of this draft statement. So please let me know in the comments section, either on here or on the blog, which I'll put a related post to, if you've got any thoughts on this. I will try and do further videos like this. The next one I'm thinking of doing is on preparing bundles of documents and getting the documents from the clients and then building on these as you go towards a court case. But that's all for now. I hope that's useful.